Good morning and welcome back to Planner Craft. So I'm Natalie and today I'm going to be taking you through a bit of a basic project for you to get started with your machine. So this one is going to be suitable for beginners and there will be a file that's going to go live onto the group so you can join in for free. So first of all, Happy New Year everyone, and hello to Tracy, Linda, Thea. Hope you're feeling a bit better now, Thea. And hopefully I should be able to see everybody's comments. So you can watch on Facebook, YouTube or Twitch. And I should be able to see comments on all three platforms today, fingers crossed. Morning Deb, morning Jill. So I thought today we would start off with something nice and simple. Ease us in gently into the new year, and I thought I would use some stencil film. So this one's by Sizzix, so I will put up some details on the group as to where you can get these things as well. I'm also going to be using a 6-inch adaptable, and you can see I've already started cutting a few other pieces. So a few extra good morning. So good morning Carol, and glad to hear that you are feeling better, Thea. So let's change view. I'm going to go over to the machine and let's wake it up. So I did my design in Canvas, so just using basic shapes, and I've transferred it using the internet. So off we go. And here's our design. So I've done all my pieces into one file, and hello Mum. We have our card front, which is this group just here. We have our mask, which is this one just here, which is what you cut from your stencil film. Then you have two colour layers. So I've just used some offcuts of paper. And good morning Auntie Pauline. Nice to see you join us. Unfortunately Ian is not here. He is currently travelling the roads. So hopefully it won't be too much of a long one today. So as we've got all those elements in one file, we just need to go through and say which bit that file we want to use. So I'm going to go to edit, and then we can delete the elements that we don't want. So that one that's currently selected we do actually want to keep, so we can just tap an item that we don't want and we can tap on our recycle bin. We can go OK to get rid of that data, and we can do the same for our other two shapes. Now another feature that you have on your machine, if you are struggling to get to little shapes that are maybe layered over one top of another or might be particularly small, you have two arrow keys here, and that actually changes which shape is selected. So just by using those we can cycle through what's on the mat and we can delete anything that we don't want to use. And good morning Ruth, and Happy New Year. So with that in place, I'm going to flick back to the overhead cam. So our 6-inch adaptable is actually not quite 6 inches, so it's about 5 3/4, and on our long edge you're actually looking at just over, well, pretty much bang on 12 inches. So we can use that either way on our mat. Now if you're working with a larger adaptable or a larger card blank, then what you will need to do is just rotate that design so that you can actually fit it onto your card, because you're going to want to aim to put it over on the right hand side of this panel. So let's go back to our machine. I'm going to load the card at the top of the mat, working straight the way across. And just to help me out a little, I'm going to put a little bit of masking tape just to show me where that card edge is. Now obviously when you're working with a white card blank on a white mat, it can be a bit difficult to see. So I'm going to go OK, and we're going to go to our background scan. So I'm working with an Sizzix Super Duo mat. So it's about a 15-inch mat rather than the 12-inch that you'd be used to. Now I've already grouped all my elements together, so I can just take that group and move that across to the side. It's an adaptable, so it's from a company called Lime Tree Craft here in the UK. If you want the sizes so that you can replicate that in other countries that they don't ship to, I can let you know. I'm going to move that across to this edge, like so. Now I want it to be slightly higher on my card, so there's less of a border here and more border here. And I'm going to use my little centre arrow here as a kind of guide for roughly where my halfway point is. And as long as it's pretty much in the centre, you should be good to go. So you'll notice that there are two different colour elements on this. We have blue elements, which is this square around the outside, and our writing, and that means that it's been set to draw only. And then you have the black line, which is cut only, because this is sent from the desktop version of Canvas, which can only do cut or draw. It can't do both. Now if you're working with the online version, you do actually have the option for a line to be able to do both, and that will also show up black, so just be aware of that. Does it have to be the millimetre size because our fundamentals are the same size? Nope, you can go for that too. The size that you mentioned is just slightly shorter in the width, because 12 inches is about 30.3 centimetres, so 303 millimetres. And let's go for that. So I'm going to go OK. And we can see our file a bit clearer when we get to this next screen. So you can see the blue and the black lines. Now, whichever way you want to create this one is up to you. So if you want to do the cut first and then draw, that's fine. If you want to draw then cut, that's equally as fine. Now because I've already got my blade in, I'm going to go for cut first. So I'll go to please select, cut, and you'll see that the draw lines disappear. So everything that you see on that screen is what's going to happen. So if at this point it is blank, that means something has gone a bit wrong somewhere. But because we've got that shape there, that's what we know it's going to cut. Now in terms of my settings, I tend to keep my speed down at 1, and for the standard auto blade, which is the black cap, I keep my pressure at -9. I just find that that's the way I get the best cut. Now machines do vary, so if you find that you have a different pressure setting, or you think it's better on auto, then do that. Okay, it's whichever works best for your machine, and it's worth experimenting. So with that, I'm going to go start and let it do its thing. Okay, so while that's doing that, let's hop back over here. So for today I'm going to use the 3D Fun Printz universal pen holder. So it has a little guide section, so when you get them, don't throw that away. It has a little screw on cap, so most of the time I keep it kind of still attached but loose, and then when you tighten it up, it's basically going to force these little green bits into the centre to grip your pen. So pen wise, I'm going to be using a Zebra Doodlers, and this is a fashion one, so it is, you can use it a bit like a watercolour pen if you want, but that's not what I'm aiming for today. I'm going to pop it in so that my nib goes into the little divot. So if I bring that a bit closer, let's see if I can get it to focus for you. So you can see there's a bit of a dent in the guide, and that's where you want your pen to touch. And you should be able to give it a little wiggle and feel it drawing on that base. If you can't feel a bit of a vibration, then just give your pen a gentle push, just so that there's a little bit of a vibration there as it's moving across the nib. That way you know that it is actually there, ready to draw on your paper. Now, if you're using an older gel pen, do give it a scribble first, just to get it to go for it. I'm just going to use a little bit of scrap paper off to one side. Yep, that's good to go. If ever you do that and you just think, I'm just nervous that it might move, just put your guide back in, give it another little wiggle, make sure that you're getting that kind of grating sensation, and we can swap that over in our machine. So we're going to load it with the 2 lines to the back and click down the lock as normal. And let's go back to close cam. Because we've now done our cut, we can go OK, please select, and this time we're going to go to draw. Now when it comes to draw settings, I do get quite a bit more involved with what I do for each pen. So it's one of those ones where if you have a notebook, particularly if you have the ScanNCut notebook that we produced, then you'll have a list of base settings for you to start at. I'm just going to press the little spanner, and that's going to take you into your draw settings. You have draw speed, which at the moment is set to 1, which is probably about right for a gel pen. If you're using something like a felt tip, for instance, you would want to speed that up. Draw pressure, again -2, about right for a gel pen, but if you are using something that has a softer tip, you would want to take that draw pressure right down so that you're not having any increased wear on your nib. So we're going to go OK, and let's go for it. Now, because we've got the 3D Fun Printz holder attached and it's an older model, you're going to get a little error message that's going to pop up saying attach appropriate holder. All you have to do is go OK and tell it to go again. Okay, so I'm just going to pop back overhead. So with the bits I've already cut, I've cut 2 pieces that are from coloured card. So this one's showing a bit white at the moment, so let's see if I can get that to pick up the colour a bit. So it's really soft green, and then we've got nice grey. So those 2 are going to go like that. And then we have our stencil film. So when you're cutting the stencil film, you are going to want to use as little pressure as possible and a nice fresh blade. So the reason being that you don't want to create any extra pull on your material, and I use the vinyl auto blade for that one just because it is that little bit thinner. So to give you kind of a sense of how thin this is, it's a bit more like vellum, but for what we're going to be using it for our masking, that is absolutely fine. So let's see how we've done. That's looking good. Let's check it's cut. So always check that it's cut before removing your mat. And here we go. So there's our card. We can take that off, and we now have our little aperture that these other bits are going to fit into. I'm going to pop my mat back into my desk for a moment. Yay. So I've had a bit of a move around over Christmas. So here's our card with our little chill, and we have a mask that we can pop over the top. So the idea being that we're going to just be working in this centre square. But before we do that, I want to do a little bit of stamping. So, here with the stamp platform, because we want to be able to stamp something in the same place 3 times. Because if we try and stamp on a layered surface, you're always going to get a little bit of a gap where the layers change. So you kind of want to be able to stamp each layer individually and get the deer, the stag, the moose, whichever, in the same place. So I'm just going to move these magnets out. So in my stamping platform, I use a piece of an old cutting mat. So one of the things I get asked is, what do you do with wee mats? They have a kind of process that they go through a life cycle. So whether that's resticking, or eventually they get down to the point where it's just a case of they are good for going into the stamp platform. So it's where they're sticky enough to hold your paper in place, but not sticky enough for you to actually cut anymore. Now, because again we're going to be stamping onto this right hand panel, you are going to want to work kind of upside down. So your hinge is here, and usually what you would do is you go, right, okay, I'm stamping this way around, but that'd be the wrong side, so you've got to do it upside down. Now, if I do that, I'm just going to very quickly get my little card elements here. I'm going to use a little bit of masking tape to help me out. So I'm going to line that up. Now these edges are going to be glued to the back of our aperture, so we don't have to worry too much about where we're placing our tape. So long as we get those outside edges level. So now what I'm going to do before I do anything else is just pop 2 magnets in just to hold my stamp mat in place. Okay, so now I can flip this up, slide my card underneath and get that more or less where I want it to go. So down just a little bit more so I have a bit more of that grey showing. And I'm just going to press that down just so I've got that grey piece welded to the bottom of my mat. Okay, so with that there, hello mister.
Yeah.
You got me telling porcupines.
No.
Well, I thought you weren't going to be back yet, and Auntie Pauline said hi.
Oh, hello.
So I'm just going to unfold those bits of masking tape because we know that this is going to fit on these 3 edges. And then we can pop an extra magnet onto our cardstock just so that we know that that is going to stay in place. Next, because my stamp platform can do both click mount and rubber mount, I've got my stamp platform on rubber because these stamps are particularly thick, so I want to make sure that they're not kind of hitting the card before the rest of the stamp does, if that makes sense. And I'm going to get the little stag. So let's pop that just there. I'm just going to pop my green card roughly back in place just so I can see how much of my stag is going to be showing. So I think that is about right. Let's get them level. It could be these walking uphill, but Now, ideally what you want at this point is to use an ink pad that is either dark enough that it's going to show on all three equally, or light enough. So we'll see how this goes. I may want to go a little bit darker. But the colour I'm using to start with is Ice Spruce, which is like a sort of dark, almost sagey green into the greys. So we'll see how it goes. I'm using a Distress Oxide because typically they tend to stamp better. But again, don't be afraid to do a couple of impressions. Okay. So I'm going to give that a moment just to dry for a second. So if you have any questions about the fill material or anything else, then do let me know. So next I'm going to pop my green card back in. Going to line it up to those edges, and this time we can use that extra bit of masking tape just to hold that in place. And I'm going to move the magnets so that it's gripping that green card. Going to go back to the Ice Spruce. Good morning, Delcy, you don't need to apologise. Now, if you find it does that and it lifts, just gently push it back down. And this is why we use that masking tape, to actually hold it in place. You'll tend to find that happens with clear stamps rather than rubber stamps. So that's why I tend to just have that mat in there. Okay, so I'm just going a little bit more for the centre of that stag. There we go. So let's pop that on there. And again, we're going to let that dry for a moment. So Distress Oxide pads are really juicy, especially when new. So it's always worth just making sure that it's kind of absorbed into that paper. So now we can go on here and we can go, okay, it's nowhere near the bottom of our page, so it's okay to just use like that. Now, if your image was down the bottom here, then you could repeat that same process to actually stamp the card as well. Okay, so at this point you're probably thinking, that's all well and good, but what's the stencil film for then? So I have sitting to one side a little stencil that we can use to add a little bit of snow. Now obviously white on white isn't going to work, so I'm going to use a pale blue. Just give my stamp a quick clean. The joy of Distress Oxides is they only need water just to clean them off, or even a dry bamboo cloth will do. So with that done, let's peel that off, and we're going to do a little bit of assembly before we do our stenciling. So I'm going to flip that over because that should now be dry, and get some double-sided tape. So I'm just going to put a little bit around the edge of my aperture. Now, to tidy this up when you've finished your card, what I would recommend doing is actually putting a separate insert into your card. If that's something that you need help with, don't be afraid to ask. Good day?
Okay.
Very good day. So that there, and we're nearly done, ready for our stenciling. Do you want to say Happy New Year?
Could do.
You could do.
Morning all, and Happy New Year to everybody. Hope you're all having a wonderful morning and enjoying the lives.
Okay. Nearly there with the double-sided tape. Now hopefully this has had a bit of time to dry. Just so I can take this back apart. Apply double-sided tape and off we go. So you don't need to use a lot of double-sided tape. And this is going to be held against the card, so we can go like that. Now I am going to apply a little bit just to these top corners, I think, just like that. Like so. And like so. And I can always remove the excess. Let's just pop that back on there for a second. Oh, Carol, you're having to isolate. I knew Thea was poorly. So let's first put the green one on. So again, I'm going to line it up on that bottom edge. Okay. And we can peel off our top little bit of adhesive and just fold that over.
Extra Christmas present, I think. Oh dear.
Oh, that's one Christmas present that could stay away, isn't it? Okay, so let's line that up. It's one of those ones where it's a bit tricky just to get the line right for where you want to go. I'm going to go out there, like so. So as I said, what you would do next is just do a nice little insert panel that's going to go in there, which I will do off stream. Cool, blimey, I'm doing well. Mind you, I was prepped, good to go, had my pieces cut, all by the card front. Are you impressed? Right.
Not as impressed as yours, I know.
Yeah. Okay, so with our mask, I'm going to bring in my little make art station. And I'm going to use my magnets to help me again. So let's position my mask. Pop on a magnet. I'm going to start off by placing all four. As you'll see in a minute, I'm going to get another stencil. So this is just a freebie from a magazine. So we can use that. Just make sure you take the tape off the back because you don't want that sticking to your card or to your mask because it will ruin the front if it doesn't want to come off, which mine doesn't. I use it up that way, I don't mind. So let's lift up this magnet. Let's go that way. One over there, one down there. I'm going to start off by just doing this little bit of a snowy texture. No, I was trying to go for a bit of a Zen-like card, so hence I have the kind of soft green rather than going full blue-grey. But I'm just going to start off very lightly. I'm trying to stick mostly to where the white is. I don't mind if it goes a little bit over the background, because obviously snow doesn't stop when you get to the horizon line. But most of the colour I just want to get in that top section. And remember, a little bit goes a long way. So even though you may think that you haven't got a lot of ink transferred through, chances are there's more than you realise. So I'm just going to blend what's left on that stencil all over. Okay. So let's peel that up so we can see that we've got a little bit of snow texture just there. And you'll notice I tend to try and only lift one magnet at a time. And that's just to keep that base stencil in place. So now we can also decide if we want to add a bit of ink blending to our actual aperture. So I think on this occasion I'm going to go for it. So I'm going to start on my actual stencil film and actually bring that colour inwards. Now if you want to make hundreds of these, then instead of using stencil film you could use Mylar. But for something like this where it's just a one-off, the stencil film is more than adequate for your needs. It's going to stop your drawing being smudged, which it could potentially do if you didn't use the masking film. And again, remember that less is more, so just because it doesn't look dark doesn't mean it's not. Now along this bottom edge you can do the same down here if you want to, because we've got that nice light coloured card. We can go and just add a touch of shadow to it, and it's going to give it a bit more shape. Now oxides are opaque rather than being an inky translucency. So that is something to bear in mind, that if you're working onto a darker card with a lighter ink pad, you're actually going to create more of a highlight than a shadow. So I'm just trying to avoid the grey for this outside edge. And we can pop that off. Remove our stencil, and there is our finished card. So, in actual fact, I've probably got time to actually do my insert as well, haven't I? So, let's do that quick. So you can use the trimmer if you want, you don't have to use ScanNCut. Just be very gentle when moving that off there, just because it's a little bit stuck. There we go.
The other way up for now.
Yes, definitely the other way up for now. Plus we're going to have to measure. So, in terms of my centre panel, we know that our width of our card blank is exactly 12 inches. So our centre line, if we fold it exactly in half, is 6 inches. So we're actually going to go slightly over our score line, just so that we have a leading edge. But for what we actually want to do in terms of our insert panel, we want to come in slightly. So we're going to go for about 5 3/4 square, so that we can have a nice finished panel. And next question is, what do we cut it from? So, decisions. Let's go for that one. Something a bit fancy. Now, if you've made your card and you think it's a bit flimsy, this is a good opportunity to actually strengthen your card. So So I'm going to get my mat. Just take off the extra from earlier. And I'll guide masking tape.
Using Duo.
I've been using my Duo, yeah. I nearly used the extra big one, but I thought, no, I'll try and stick to using one mat up at a time. So, there we go. Let's move those out of the way for a second so we can get to our machine. Wake up the machine. Okay. So, just to take that out there, just loosen off the cap and pop that on there, and we can go to close cam. So, we now don't need any more of this design, so we can just press home to reset and OK. Ta-da! Next, we're going to want to create our square. So let me just pop this magnet out of the way. Safety first and all that. Thank you. And we're going to go to Pattern, Basic Shape, Square. Now, at the moment that's set to millimeters, but we've just done our measurement in inches. So if we press on the spanner, we can change at this point so that we can actually go back to inches. So I tend to be hopping between the two all the time. If you're more comfortable just working in millimeters, leave it at millimeters. If you're more comfortable just working in inches, stick in inches. So I'm going to alter my size, that 5 3/4. So 5.75. And set that onto my mat. That's going to load it automatically into the top left corner. And at this point, this is a cut and draw line because it's done on the machine. So I'm going to go OK. Please select cut. And again, because it's a basic shape, I'm going to just use my standard auto blade. My pressure is still at -9, and off we go. So, any questions?
What sentiment do you
It has one.
No, on the inside.
Oh, on the inside. You want me to put the actual sentiment on it?
You put something on the inside. So you're not going to bother?
I wasn't going to bother, but now you got me pondering. So let's flick back to overhead.
Yeah, but you have that set up to do here.
No, I don't need it, do I? Because it's all on screen, nice and easy.
People like the new setup.
I don't know. Do you want to ask? So what do you guys all think of the new setup? Are you enjoying it? It's a lot easier for me, which is why we did it, wasn't it?
Mm. That was always the plan, wasn't it?
Yeah, make my life easier. But we actually have all 3 machines set up now, so if I want to do a stream with the CM, I can do. If I want to do one with Silhouette, I can do. And they're literally set up to the 3 sides of my desk, so I don't even have to move anywhere.
Yeah, so you might have to move with the camera, isn't it?
Yeah. But even that, for the most part, I can probably get most cameras to somewhere nearby. So.
Very slick of it.
I'm certainly enjoying working in the space. So it took us a while, didn't it, to do it? Because
Yeah, just 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days all in. And there's still bits that aren't quite right, but it's certainly getting there and a lot easier to handle. So now, oh, don't forget the one in the middle. I'm just going to pop that onto there. Like so. Nice and neat. And now we've got kind of reinforced card. Next you need the scoreboard. So there's a few different ones out there on the market. They all have their plus points, don't they? So I'm going to go for this one.
Is it not pre-scored that one?
No. I'm going to go upside down because I want to make sure that I get a leading edge on this. So if I put it into this corner and just move it along very slightly, then we know that that should give me a nice leading edge. And then I just need my bone folder, which still manages to...
Yes, Linda, that's correct.
Yeah, definitely with your rollers. Ours had a good clean, didn't it? Yeah. To say the least. So, and there we go. Ta-da! So I will be putting the file up for you all to play with so that you can have a go. And you just need a little silhouette animal stamp of some kind and a snowy stencil. So I hope you've enjoyed today and look forward to seeing you. Now I will be back on Friday at 11 AM and it will be a Pretty Gets Gritty stream. So I'm looking to be doing some journaling. So if you have any journaling questions, you can pop them in a message to me or to Plannercraft and I will try and answer them in that stream. So take care and I will see you Friday. Don't forget to join the group if you're not already a member. So that's ScanNCut and Papercraft courses, classes and workshops by Plannercraft. Long name. So that you can get access to the files. And if you have any questions or issues in the meantime, we are always available, aren't we?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. So take care and bye.